The bustling streets of Manhattan swallowed us whole as Elijah yanked his hand away from mine the instant we spotted his colleagues approaching from the opposite direction. In that single sharp movement, I felt the weight of 2 years of hidden love crash down on me like the skyscrapers looming overhead. My fingers curled into a fist at my side, the rejection stinging sharper than the autumn wind whipping between the buildings. Elijah kept walking, his eyes fixed straight ahead, a polite smile already forming on his lips for the approaching group, as if I were just another stranger sharing the sidewalk. I slowed my pace, letting the distance grow between us, my chest tightening with the familiar ache that had been building for months now. We had met at a small coffee shop in Brooklyn 2 years earlier when I spilled my latte across the table, and he offered me napkins with that quiet laugh that made my stomach flip. Hudson, the graphic designer who lived openly and proudly in the city, and Elijah, the accountant who had moved from a small town in Ohio, carrying secrets heavier than his briefcase. At first it was easy, stolen moments in my apartment, late night talks about dreams and fears, and the kind of kisses that felt like coming home. But the world outside our four walls demanded more than I realized, and Elijah always pulled back when eyes might see. Now, as his colleagues waved and called his name, I watched him shake hands and chat casually, the man I loved erasing me from the scene with effortless grace. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my best friend Lucas asking if we were still on for drinks later. I typed a quick reply, forcing my fingers to move while my mind replayed the moment again and again. When the group finally moved on, Elijah glanced back at me, his expression softening just enough to show the regret he never voiced out loud. We continued toward the subway in silence, the unspoken words hanging between us like fog over the Hudson River. I wanted to scream at him, to demand why he could love me in private but treat me like a ghost in public. Instead, I swallowed it down the way I always did, pretending it was enough. That night in my apartment, the city lights flickering through the windows, Elijah reached for me, pulling me close with an urgency that almost made me forget the sidewalk. His hands traced patterns on my back, and for a few hours the world felt right again. But as we lay there afterwards staring at the ceiling, I felt the distance creeping back in. He talked about work deadlines and a family visit coming up, his parents still believing he was the perfect straight son heading toward marriage and grandkids. I listened, nodding at the right moments, my heart fracturing a little more with every word. The next morning I woke to an empty bed and a note saying he had an early meeting. I stared at the paper for a long time, the handwriting neat and careful, just like him. Lucas met me for lunch at our usual spot, a tiny diner near my office where the coffee was strong and the booths were private. He took one look at my face and knew. "You two fought again," he said, not a question. I told him about the sidewalk, the way Elijah had recoiled as if touching me would burn him. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Hudson, you deserve someone who is proud to be seen with you, not someone who treats you like a secret." I knew he was right, but love had a way of twisting logic into knots. That afternoon I threw myself into work, designing logos for a new client, the colors blurring together as my mind wandered back to Elijah. By evening he texted asking if I wanted to meet for a walk in Central Park. I agreed because saying no felt impossible. The park was alive with joggers and families, the leaves turning gold under the setting sun. Elijah arrived with 2 coffees in hand, his smile tentative. We walked side by side, our shoulders almost touching, but never quite. He talked about his day, the pressure from his boss, and the email from his mother asking when he was bringing home a nice girl. I stopped under a lamppost, the light casting long shadows across the path. "Elijah, why do we keep doing this?" I asked, my voice low. He looked away, his jaw tightening. "You know why? My family, my job, everything would change if they knew." I reached for his hand again, this time slower, giving him the chance to pull away. He did not, but his fingers were stiff, and he glanced around, checking for familiar faces. The small victory felt hollow. Later that week, Elijah invited me to a work happy hour at a rooftop bar downtown. I dressed carefully, choosing a shirt I knew he liked, hoping tonight might be different. The bar was packed with accountants and analysts laughing over cocktails. Elijah introduced me as his friend from college, the lie slipping out so easily it made my stomach turn. I smiled through it, sipping my drink while he chatted with a woman from marketing who kept touching his arm. Jealousy flared hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. On the way home in the cab, Elijah apologized quietly. "I just need more time," he said, squeezing my knee in the dark. I nodded, but inside something shifted, a quiet resolve forming. The days blurred into weeks filled with more hidden dinners, more whispered promises, and more moments where the world reminded me we were not equals in the light. My family knew about Elijah, my sister sending supportive texts, and my parents asking when they could meet him properly. Elijah never asked about them in return. One Friday night, Lucas dragged me to a gallery opening in Chelsea where the art was bold and the crowd even bolder. I felt free there, surrounded by people who lived openly without apology. When a guy named Marcus offered me his number, I hesitated, then took it, not because I wanted it, but because it felt like breathing. Elijah called later, his voice tight, after I mentioned the night casually. "You were with someone else?" he asked. "Just friends," I said, but the seed of doubt had been planted in both of us. The misunderstanding grew from there, small at first, then swelling into something neither of us could ignore. The following weekend, Elijah suggested we drive out to the Hamptons for a quiet getaway, just the two of us away from the city noise. I agreed, hoping the distance might bridge the gap widening between us. The rental car hummed along the highway, windows down, and music playing softly. Elijah seemed relaxed, his hand resting on my thigh. For most of the drive, no one around to see. We checked into a small inn with ocean views and spent the afternoon walking the beach, the waves crashing like a rhythm to our conversation. He opened up about his childhood in Ohio, the strict expectations from his father, a military man who valued tradition above all. I never felt like I could be anything but what they wanted, he admitted, his voice barely above the surf. I squeezed his hand tighter, wishing I could shield him from those memories. That night in the cozy room, we talked for hours about the future, the kind we both wanted but feared. Elijah dreamed of traveling, seeing the world without hiding. I shared my vision of building a life where love did not require shadows. For the first time in months, it felt possible. Back in the city, however, reality crashed in fast. Elijah received a call from his sister announcing she was engaged and the family wanted a big celebration in Ohio next month. "You should come," he said, but the invitation carried conditions. As my friend, of course. I stared at him across the kitchen table, the words landing like stones. "Friend," I repeated, the taste bitter. He looked down at his hands. "Hudson, please, it is just for now." I stood up, pacing the small apartment, my frustration boiling over. "When is now going to end, Elijah? I have been patient for 2 years, waiting for you to choose us over fear." He stood to, reaching for me, but I stepped back, this time the roles reversed. The argument stretched late into the night, voices raised, then falling into painful silence. He left before dawn, leaving me alone with the echo of his words. The next days were a blur of work deadlines and sleepless nights. Lucas came over with pizza and beer, listening as I poured out every detail. "You cannot keep sacrificing your peace for someone who is not ready," he said gently. I knew he was right, yet the thought of letting go felt like tearing out a piece of myself. Elijah texted apologies, and we met for coffee, trying to patch things up. He promised to try harder, to be more open in small ways. We went to a movie holding hands in the dark theater, and it felt like progress. But progress was fragile. At the office holiday party a few weeks later, Elijah brought me as his +1, the first time he had done so publicly. My heart soared as we entered the decorated ballroom, his colleagues smiling and asking how we knew each other. Elijah hesitated, then said, "Hudson is my boyfriend," the words hanging in the air like a victory. I beamed, squeezing his hand under the table. For a few hours, everything felt perfect, laughter flowing and toasts ringing out. Then his boss pulled him aside for a private chat, and when Elijah returned, his face was pale. "What happened?" I asked later in the cab. He just said, "The firm values discretion, and I need to think about my career." The glow faded fast, replaced by the old tension. Christmas arrived with snow blanketing the city. I spent the day with my family, the warmth of their acceptance a stark contrast to Elijah's silence about his own plans. He called that evening, his voice strained after a tense dinner with his parents who had grilled him about dating. I could not tell them, he confessed. The new year brought a turning point neither of us saw coming. Elijah's sister sent photos from her engagement party, including one of him posing with an old female friend from high school. The caption read, "Perfect match," and it spread through family chats. When I saw it on his phone, the misunderstanding ignited like dry tinder. "You are still playing the straight game, even with them," I accused, my voice shaking. Elijah tried to explain it was just a photo, but the damage was done. I stormed out into the cold night, walking blocks until my legs burned. Lucas found me at a bar later, and drove me home offering the kind of support only a true friend could. "You deserve transparency, not this constant guessing," he said. Days turned into a fragile truce, Elijah vowing to confront his family soon. We planned a weekend trip to the mountains, hoping nature would heal what words could not. The cabin was rustic and peaceful, snow falling softly outside. We cooked meals together, laughed over old stories, and made love by the fireplace, the kind of intimacy that reminded me why I fought so hard. But on the last night, Elijah received a call from his father demanding he come home for a family meeting. The tone left no room for refusal. I watched him pack his bag, the silence heavy. When he left, I sat by the window, staring at the empty driveway, the decision forming slowly in my mind. Back in New York, I threw myself into a new project at work, designing a campaign for an LGBTQ nonprofit, the irony not lost on me. Elijah returned from Ohio quieter than ever, his eyes haunted by whatever had been said. He did not share details, and I did not push. Instead, we drifted through weeks of surface conversations and avoided touches in public. The betrayal I felt was not from another person, but from the choices he kept making. One evening at a mutual friend's birthday party, the tension snapped. Elijah introduced me again as just a friend, and when I confronted him outside the venue, the arguments spilled into the street. Voices echoed off brick walls, accusations flying about sacrifice and fear. He grabbed my arm, begging me to understand, but I pulled away, this time my heart hardening. "I cannot keep waiting for you to be brave," I said, the words final. That night, I cried alone in my apartment, the city lights blurring through tears. The following morning, I woke with a clarity I had not felt in years. I packed a bag for a short trip upstate, needing space to breathe. Elijah texted repeatedly, but I left the messages unread. The drive north gave me time to reflect on every moment we shared, the good, the painful, and the in-between. By the time I reached the small town, I realized love should not require hiding. The cabin I rented overlooked a frozen lake, the quiet wrapping around me like a blanket. I spent the days hiking through snow-covered trails, my mind clearing with each step. Messages from Elijah piled up, some apologetic, others desperate, but I needed this time to face myself. Lucas called, checking in, his voice steady as always. "You are doing the right thing," he said. "Growth hurts, but staying small hurts more." I nodded, even though he could not see me. On the third day, Elijah showed up unannounced, his car pulling into the driveway covered in road salt. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, as he approached, his breath visible in the cold air. "Hudson, we need to talk," he said, his eyes red-rimmed. We sat by the fireplace, inside the crackling with the only sound for minutes. He told me everything: the family meeting, the threats from his father about disinheritance, the guilt from his mother who suspected but stayed silent. "I love you," he whispered, "but I am scared." I listened, the words sinking in deeper than before. Part of me wanted to pull him close and promise we could face it together. The stronger part knew promises without action were empty. We talked through the night, mapping out possibilities, coming out timelines, even couples therapy. For a moment, hope flickered again. Back in the city, we tried implementing changes, small steps, like walking closer in the park or posting a vague photo together online. Elijah's family noticed the shift, questions flooding his phone. The pressure mounted quickly. One afternoon, his sister called while we were together, her voice loud enough for me to hear the accusations. "Are you gay?" she demanded, and Elijah froze. He hung up without answering, his face ashen. That night, he drank too much, pacing the apartment. "I cannot lose them," he kept repeating. I held him until he slept, but inside my resolve strengthened. The misunderstanding escalated when a colleague at Elijah's firm saw us leaving a restaurant and spread rumors. The boss called Elijah in for a meeting, reminding him of company image. Elijah came home furious, blaming the city life for complicating everything. I tried to calm him, but the fight turned ugly, words about my openness being reckless. "You think hiding is strength?" I shot back. The next morning, we barely spoke. Lucas invited me to a pride planning meeting at the community center, hoping it would lift my spirits. I went alone, the energy there electric, with people fighting for visibility. Elijah texted asking where I was, and when I told him, he replied with silence. Days later, he surprised me by joining a small support group for men struggling with coming out. I felt proud watching him open up in meetings, his voice gaining strength. Yet the public hand holding still eluded us. During a group outing to a museum, Elijah walked beside me, our fingers brushing but never linking. I pulled back, this time the pattern too familiar. Family pressure peaked when Elijah's parents announced a surprise visit to New York. He panicked, cleaning the apartment, hiding any trace of our life together. I offered to stay at Lucas' place, but he begged me to meet them as a roommate. The dinner was tense, polite conversation, masking the truth. His mother watched us closely, her eyes knowing. When they left, Elijah collapsed on the couch, exhausted. I cannot keep lying, he admitted, but the words felt too late. Work took me to Los Angeles for a conference, the distance giving us both space. In California, I met other designers living openly, their stories inspiring. One evening at a networking event, I connected with a guy named Alex who shared his journey of acceptance. Talking to him felt easy, no secrets, no shame. I mentioned it casually to Elijah over video call, and his jealousy flared immediately. "Are you replacing me?" he asked. The accusation stung because it revealed his insecurity. I reassured him, but the seed was planted. Upon returning home, the air between us had changed. Elijah tried harder, planning a romantic dinner at home, candles and all. We laughed like old times, but when I suggested a weekend in Provincetown, a gay-friendly town, he hesitated. The rejection hurt more than ever. Lucas warned me that love without equality was not sustainable. I knew he was right. The betrayal came not from cheating, but from Elijah's decision to attend his high school reunion alone, claiming it was easier. Photos surfaced online, him smiling beside old friends, including the girl from the engagement post. I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. When he returned, I confronted him, the evidence laid out. "It is not what it looks like," he said, but the trust had cracked. We spent hours talking through the pain, tears flowing freely. Elijah promised to make it right, suggesting we tell his family together. The plan gave me hope, but life had other plans. A work crisis pulled Elijah away for days, and in his absence, I reflected deeply. I wrote in a journal, pouring out years of emotions, the sacrifices, the joys, the quiet despairs. When he came back, we sat down to discuss the family conversation. But before we could schedule it, his father called with news of a health scare. Elijah flew home immediately, leaving me behind. The waiting was agony, messages sparse. When he returned, his demeanor had shifted back to caution. The scare made him realize life is short, but also reminded him of family ties. "I cannot risk losing them now," he said softly. The words landed like a final blow. That weekend, I packed some things and stayed with Lucas, giving myself distance. The city felt different without the constant pull of our routine. I walked the streets alone, noticing couples holding hands openly, and it strengthened my resolve. Elijah called every day, pleading for another chance. I listened, but the decision was forming. The spring arrived with blooming trees and longer days, mirroring the clarity growing inside me. Elijah and I met at our favorite coffee shop, the same one where it all began. He looked tired but determined, laying out a plan to come out gradually, starting with his sister. I wanted to believe him, but past patterns loomed large. We spent the afternoon walking Brooklyn Bridge, the wind carrying promises. For the first time in months, he reached for my hand, first right there in the open. The gesture was small, yet monumental. My heart swelled, but a voice whispered caution. That evening, we cooked together in my kitchen, music playing softly. Elijah talked about therapy sessions he had started alone, working on self-acceptance. I shared my own growth, the way I had started volunteering at an LGBTQ center, finding purpose beyond our relationship. The connection felt renewed but fragile. The following week, his sister visited New York for a work trip. Elijah invited her to dinner at my place, the setting neutral. She arrived with flowers, her smile warm, but eyes searching. Over pasta and wine, the conversation flowed until Elijah cleared his throat and said the words, "I am gay and Hudson is my boyfriend." The silence stretched, then broke with her tears and hugs. She admitted she had suspected for years and supported him fully. The relief on Elijah's face was palpable. We celebrated with ice cream on the rooftop, the city sparkling below. For days after, the mood was light, Elijah texting his sister daily and even mentioning me in family calls. Progress felt real. Then the misunderstanding returned like an old ghost. A photo from the reunion resurfaced in a group chat, his mother questioning the closeness with the old friend. Elijah downplayed it, but the doubt crept back into his voice. I tried not to react, but the old wound reopened. Lucas noticed during our weekly gym session. "You look like you are carrying the world again," he said, spotting me on weights. I opened up about the photo, the lingering fears. He reminded me of my own strength, the man I had become. Inspired, I planned a special day to picnic in Central Park with all Elijah's favorites. We spread the blanket under a tree, the sun warm on our skin. He relaxed completely, his head on my shoulder as people passed by. No pulling away this time. The moment felt like a breakthrough. As summer approached, Elijah's work sent him to a conference in Chicago. I encouraged him to go, proud of his growing confidence. While he was away, I focused on my career, landing a big client for a Pride campaign. The project energized me, designs flowing with colors and messages of acceptance. Elijah called nightly, sharing stories from the event, his voice lighter. On the last night, he said he had told a colleague about us, the first time outside family. My pride swelled. He returned with gifts and stories. We stayed up late talking. The relationship seemed to be turning a corner. But family expectations struck again when his parents announced a surprise anniversary party in Ohio requiring his presence. Elijah invited me this time as his partner, the step huge. I accepted, nervous but hopeful. The drive west was long, filled with playlists and deep conversations. His hometown felt foreign, the streets lined with flags and churches. The party was at a local hall, relatives everywhere. Elijah held my hand as we entered the room, the gesture public and deliberate. Whispers spread, but his sister stood by us smiling. His mother hugged me tightly, whispering welcome. His father, however, remained distant, his handshake firm, but eyes guarded. The evening progressed with toasts and dancing. Elijah and I swayed together on the floor, the first time in front of family. It felt liberating. Later that night in the hotel, Elijah opened up about his father's quiet disapproval, the conversation they had in private. I held him through it, promising we would face it together. The visit ended on a positive note, his mother inviting us back soon. Back in New York, the momentum continued. We attended Pride Parade together, marching hand in hand with Lucas and friends, the energy electric. Elijah wore a rainbow pin proudly, the symbol of his journey. I watched him interact with strangers, sharing his story, the growth visible. The summer months brought more milestones, shared vacations to the beach, where we walked openly, and even a joint apartment search, looking toward a future. Yet deep down I sensed a shadow. Elijah still hesitated in certain crowds, old fears dying hard. One evening at a neighborhood block party, he introduced me as his partner to everyone, the pride in his voice genuine. I felt complete. The turning point arrived unexpectedly during a family video call. His father joined midway, his expression stern. "Son, we need to talk about this lifestyle," he said, the word landing heavy. Elijah defended us passionately, his voice steady. The call ended in tension, but Elijah did not back down. Afterward, he turned to me, tears in his eyes. "I choose us," he said. The words healed something deep. We celebrated with a quiet dinner, planning our next steps. The fall brought change, Elijah coming out at work fully, the support surprising him. His colleagues rallied, some sharing their own stories. The office even featured my Pride campaign in their newsletter, the Full Circle Moment Suite. Our life settled into a rhythm of openness, dates in public, and honest talks. Yet the past lingered in small ways, Elijah still glancing around occasionally. I addressed it gently during a hike in the Catskills. He admitted the journey was ongoing, but he was committed. We returned home stronger. Winter holidays approached, and we planned to spend Christmas with my family, then fly to Ohio. The excitement built as we shopped for gifts. Elijah seemed at peace, the man I fell in love with shining through. On Christmas Eve at my parents' house, he held my hand at the dinner table, no hesitation. The acceptance from my family warmed the room. The trip to Ohio followed, with his mother greeting us warmly. His father remained reserved, but participated in conversations. The days passed with traditions and laughter. On New Year's Eve, we stood on the porch watching fireworks, Elijah turning to me. "I am sorry for all the times I pulled away," he said. "I forgive you," I replied, meaning it. The new year started with promise, our bond deeper. Yet life tested us again when Elijah received a job offer in a conservative town requiring relocation. We discussed it for weeks, the pros and cons. Ultimately, he declined, choosing to stay where we could grow freely. The decision marked his final step into full acceptance. Our story continued evolving with challenges, but now we faced them together. Spring returned, marking 1 year since the sidewalk rejection that started it all. We celebrated the anniversary with a trip back to that same spot, now holding hands without fear. Elijah laughed at the memory, his eyes clear. "I have come so far because of you," he said. The city buzzed around us, alive with possibility. Work flourished for both of us, my designs gaining recognition, and Elijah earning a promotion for his innovative ideas. We moved into a larger apartment with a view of the river, the space symbolizing our new chapter. Lucas became a regular visitor, his friendship the foundation that held us steady through rough times. One weekend, we hosted a dinner party, inviting friends and family. The apartment filled with laughter and stories. Elijah's sister flew in, bringing positive updates from home, his parents slowly warming. The evening felt like a triumph. Summer brought festivals and outdoor adventures. We kayaked on the Hudson and attended concerts in the park, always side by side. Elijah initiated public displays, now the hesitation gone. I watched him bloom into the man he was meant to be, confident and proud. Yet growth is never linear. A minor argument arose when an old friend from Ohio visited, and Elijah slipped into old habits, introducing me casually at first. I pulled him aside later, the conversation honest but loving. He apologized immediately, recognizing the pattern. We worked through it with open dialogue, the trust rebuilding stronger. The fall season brought a major project for me, a national campaign for equality. Elijah supported every step, attending meetings and offering insights. The launch event was a success, the room full of influencers and advocates. Standing on stage, I thanked Elijah publicly for inspiring the work, his smile in the audience radiant. That night we danced at the after-party, the music pulsing as we moved together unashamed. Winter arrived with snow and cozy nights. We decorated our tree together, hanging ornaments from our travels. Elijah's family joined us for the holidays, this time his father participating more openly. Conversations flowed about acceptance and change, the healing visible. On Christmas morning, Elijah handed me a small box, inside a key to a cabin upstate, our future getaway. The gesture touched me deeply. The new year brought reflection on our journey. We attended a retreat for couples focusing on communication and vulnerability. The experience deepened our bond, teaching tools for lasting love. Back home, we implemented daily check-ins, the routine strengthening us. Challenges still appeared, like societal comments or family doubts, but we faced them united. Elijah started a blog sharing anonymous stories of coming out, inspiring others. I supported him fully, the platform growing quickly. Spring marked another milestone, Elijah running in a charity race for LGBTQ youth, his shirt proudly displaying our cause. I cheered from the sidelines, my heart full. The summer brought travel to Europe, a dream realized. In Paris, we walked hand in hand along the Seine, the city of love, fitting perfectly. Elijah proposed spontaneously on a bridge, the ring simple yet meaningful. I said yes, tears flowing. The engagement celebration back home united our worlds, friends and family toasting our future. Planning the wedding became a joyful project, incorporating elements from both our lives. Elijah's parents fully embraced the idea, his father even offering advice. The year flew by with fittings, tastings, and laughter. On the wedding day, in a beautiful vineyard upstate, the sun shone bright. Elijah walked down the aisle, his eyes locked on mine, the moment electric. Vows exchanged, promises of love and acceptance, the crowd cheering. The reception danced late into the night, Lucas giving a heartfelt toast about friendship and growth. The honeymoon in Hawaii was paradise, beaches and sunsets sealing our commitment. Returning home, we settled into married life, the bond unbreakable. Years passed with careers thriving and a home filled with love. We adopted a dog named River, the perfect addition. Family visits became regular, both sides blending seamlessly. Elijah continued advocating, speaking at events, his story empowering many. I expanded my design studio, focusing on inclusive brands. Through it all, the early struggles became lessons, the foundation of our strength. Reflecting on the path from that sidewalk moment to this life of openness filled me with gratitude. Elijah and I grew together, learning that love requires courage and truth. The journey shaped us into better men. Now, as we sit on our porch watching the sunset, I know the choice to let go of fear was the greatest gift. Our story continues, inspiring others to embrace their truth. The years blended into a beautiful tapestry of shared moments and quiet victories. We built traditions like annual pride parades and family reunions that strengthened our roots. Elijah thrived in his career, eventually starting his own consulting firm focused on diversity training. His passion for helping others mirrored the growth he had fought so hard for. I watched him lead workshops, his confidence inspiring employees to live authentically. Our home became a gathering place for friends navigating their own journeys, the conversations honest and supportive. Lucas found his own partner, a kind man named Theo, and the four of us created lasting memories on weekend getaways. Family dynamics evolved too, Elijah's parents becoming proud advocates, attending events, and sharing our story with their community. His father even marched in a local parade, the image forever etched in my mind. Challenges appeared as life does, a health scare for my mother that brought us closer through caregiving, and a career setback for Elijah that tested our resilience. We faced them hand in hand, the lessons from our early days guiding us. Through it all, the public affection we once fought for became natural, a simple hand hold on the street, now a symbol of everything we overcame. One autumn evening we sat by the fireplace, Elijah turning to me with a smile. "Remember when I pulled away on that sidewalk?" he asked. "How could I forget?" I replied, laughing softly. That moment changed everything, he said. It led us here. We reflected on the misunderstandings, the secrets, the sacrifices, and the ultimate choice to prioritize love and self-worth. The pain had forged a bond nothing could break. As seasons changed, we traveled more, exploring national parks and international cities, always open and proud. Elijah started mentoring young men struggling with identity, his words offering the guidance he once needed. I continued creating art that celebrated diversity, my exhibitions drawing crowds moved by the stories behind the designs. Our legacy grew through the lives we touched, the community we built. On our 10th anniversary, we renewed our vows in the same vineyard, the circle complete. Friends and family surrounded us, the joy palpable. Looking into Elijah's eyes, I saw the man who had fought his fears and won. The journey from hiding to living fully had transformed us both. Now as gray touches our hair and laughter lines deepen, I cherish every step. The city we love still buzzes outside our window, but inside our home peace reigns. We adopted a child through fostering, a bright boy named Alex who calls us dads with pride. Watching him grow reminds me daily of the importance of acceptance. Elijah coaches his soccer team openly, and I design his school projects with love. The family we created is our greatest achievement. Reflecting on the path, I realized the decision to let go of fear was never about giving up, but about choosing a love that honored who we truly are. Hudson and Elijah against the world, yet together forever. The story of two men who found themselves through each other continues, inspiring those still searching. And as we watch Alex play in the park, his hand in ours, the future shines bright. Hiding your true self for love is always the right choice. True or false?